Okay, well, John,
Nice.
thanks for joining the podcast. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm super grateful we were able to connect and do this. But yeah, before we get started, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and and then we can get into how we connected and maybe talk through some of the things we've already been talking through.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, 18-year veteran of the United States Air Force, served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and largely my journey went with the tragic death of my oldest brother, who was reporting in Syria, captured, tortured, and then ultimately beheaded by ISIS and Jihadi John. And so after that, the clinical diagnosis was PTSD, but for me, it started a journey to come home mentally and to deal with a lot of the demons that comes with, post-traumatic stress. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah,
And as a result, I created years later, created this page, Men's Methodology, to talk about these type of things, because I think men in particular have issues dealing with emotional trauma, getting support, networking, and accessing the services that we need to overcome some of these things.
yeah, no, and appreciate you sharing that. And it must be difficult to talk about. And I think you've touched on a few points that are very important and definitely I want to explore today. I guess one of the things when you mentioned PTSD, some of the
Mm.
things I've read around it, especially in your experience, is often men when they come home, they're not even aware of the trauma that they've kind of buried, right? It shows up in dreams, nightmares, just blow ups here and there. But how were you aware? What was kind of like your journey in identifying some of that traumatic stress disorder, and what kind of resources did you use to kind of work through it?
Um, so let me start at the beginning. You asked a couple questions there. So I think the first question is kind of, I agree with you. I think guys don't realize, or people in general don't realize, when they're going through a traumatic stress type thing. It's an environment. It's something that sometimes comes on slowly. Sometimes, when as they say in the biz, right, the indexed event,
Hmm.
you're in a state of shock for a week or a month, and then all of a sudden you have these symptoms and feelings and anger that just kind of comes on, and you're just like, and you get to a point where it just kind of becomes, unfortunately, normal, but it's not normal. And so for me, there I think for me, the biggest indicator was my 12-year marriage dissolved. For whatever reason, I'll take responsibility for it. There's
Hmm.
no use at this point placing fault on anybody. I just was angry all the time, and like I just had a hard time getting out of bed. I just, there were, yeah, thoughts and nightmares, all the classic stuff. But unfortunately for me, I thought I was a man,
Yeah.
former football player, college football player, blah, 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 in the military, and try to white knuckle the steering wheel, and the classic archetype of that guy being the stoic lone wolf. I got this, no issues. Well, I didn't.
Hmm.
And so as a result, marriage, got divorced, hit rock bottom, trying to self-medicate through alcohol. That didn't work. And realized that I needed help. And so I reached out to a therapist, and that helped for a while. The unfortunate thing with the military is that you move every 2 to 3 years.
Hmm.
And the therapist, which I truly enjoyed, wasn't willing at the time to do telehealth. Now telehealth's just like part of the package,
Yeah.
especially with the COVID environment. One of the benefits of COVID. Um, so I'm like, okay, well, let's get them cured,
Yeah.
which is not the case. And then boom, went back to my behaviors of, trying to find wholeness and intimacy in other relationships, i.e., girlfriends, to complete me,
Hmm.
to or save me, or to fix me, and of course that didn't work. But then when I would break it off, and this is not an indictment of those women; they're all great, wonderful women, but I just wasn't in the right place to be in a relationship because
Hmm.
hadn't done the work to allow me to be present in a relationship, and so the same cycle kept happening over and over again. And then finally, I mean, this is over a period of, well, my brother died in 2014, and now we're talking like 6 7 years later.
Hmm.
Here we are. I'm in clinical therapy for PTSD. I'm slowly starting to build a network, a friends network of guys, which is hard at 40,
Hmm.
41, because, you know, again, nothing to the women, but if it didn't work out, boom, there I'm on my butt. I have no one, right?
Hmm.
And now I have a group of men that are supportive and slowly taking micro steps forward and progressions. My journey's still happening. I
Yeah.
totally own that. I make mistakes every day, like anyone else, but I do feel that I have a path and a way forward, and that helps in the mindset and knowing that it's on the right path. It
Hmm.
takes time, takes patience, takes persistence, and that's what I'm working through.
Yeah, no, I that's amazing, and I appreciate everything you're sharing here. And I think part of it I can relate to, obviously not to the same extent of PTSD, but kind of going through a separation, I've also felt alone at times. You
Yeah.
kind of lose your entire social circle, and
100%.
it's tough, right? And even now, like most of my friends have kids and are married. I mean, I have a
Right.
kid myself, but it's hard to find that network of guys that you can support each other. And I'm starting to get to that point as well, like you said, through the work I'm doing, my own therapy, and just being able to support other guys going through similar situations. I think we do need to support each other and have that network, and unfortunately it hasn't existed. It's hard to build, and it's hard to find guys who are willing to like have those difficult conversations and be vulnerable. And anytime you meet someone, like even us having these conversations of being vulnerable to each other, it's taken a long time for men to get here. And I think we're on the right path now that we like are trying to normalize that, but it's come a long way from where it was, right? And I'm hoping we can continue these conversations.
Yeah, no, not as a scapegoat, but I truly believe it's almost like a generational thing. I think each generation, the baby boomers, down to I'm going to get the generations wrong, but the baby boomers to X or to Generation X to the millennials and Generation Z, as it comes down, you find the level of vulnerability, particularly within young men, at least from what I've witnessed anecdotally. There's no research, no research behind this, but it seems like they're more open to sharing their feelings, and therapy is a bit more normalized.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely, yeah. I mean, there is more conversation around therapy, and definitely it is becoming a bit more normal. I still think there is the stigma around speaking our feelings, and I still see a lot of men struggle, but I think that's something, there's definitely an improvement, and I believe it's going to continue to improve. I guess in your case, and I know, like, I don't want to spend too much time talking on kind of your Air Force experience, but when going through some of the mental health struggles, or again experiencing some of the stuff you've experienced, especially with your brother, what kind of resources were available to you? Was there encouragement on seeking therapy? Was there support around it? um, yeah, like what, how were you able to deal with some of those things?
So let me start first by the military is really just a reflection of the population, right?
Hmm.
So whatever, granted, some industries are a little bit tougher than others, right? But when it comes to mental health. But really, we pull these stigmas and this cultural society thing. It just doesn't materialize out of nowhere, right? So we are a reflection of the population. At the same time, with that, for any guy, it's hard to be like, you know what? I am overwhelmed. I'm underwater. I need help, especially someone who just came back from Afghanistan. And I remember just coming back from Afghanistan, because there's a certain level of intimacy with the group that you're working, 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. You're doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, you're this military focused guy, with a mission. And yes, of course, I was at the time talking with my wife and kids daily, maybe for an hour or whatever. But then boom, you were ripped from that environment from
Hmm.
Afghanistan. And then it's like, boom, you are now a husband, you are now a father, ready, go. And so you just come back and you're like, you know, and then, I mean, there's a loss of intimacy and a loss of almost, I don't want to say self, because for, at least for me, for this last year, I was this person. Now it's just switching
Hmm.
back. And for me, oh, by the way, when I came back, I had a newborn son. So there's just, that added stress.
Yeah.
To go back to your question regarding the services that the Air Force provides, the Air Force has a ton of services. Uh, but like anything else, you have to seek it, and you have to be willing to do the work, uh, to put into uh, going through that therapeutic journey, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, and I think you touch on an interesting thing that I guess most people don't fully appreciate, including myself, is, you're out there in Afghanistan or Iraq, with in a completely different setting, and then all of a sudden you have to just come home, and there's no real transition period. It's like you've switched roles completely, and now you have to be a husband and a father, and in your case, even a father to a newborn, which, like you said, has its own stressors, right? When the baby's not going to sleep and stuff like that. So I think that's something we don't appreciate, kind of the transition you guys have to go through in going back and forth, in terms of your work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just one of the things you sign up for. I think it's pretty just pretty normal,
Yeah.
uh, for other service members. It seems like.
Yeah, yeah. And then now you're doing the whole work, and you say you created this page, the men's methodology, and I just wanted to touch on that a little bit in terms of what inspired you to do that, and how is that work coming along, and what are some of the things you're doing within that space?
So, uh, where do I start? So really, I would say on this journey, like I said, coming home, for the longest time, I wanted to say something. I wanted to speak out. I wanted to, you know, share my story, or share, some of my mess ups, so that way other dudes could, or guys could do better.
Hmm.
Um, but let me tell you, one of the biggest barriers was fear. Absolute fear of Instagram. Can you imagine that? Fear of Instagram at 41, fear of Instagram, fear of, what my friends are going to say, what my family's going to say. Is it going to be worth it? Like, what if it doesn't take off? And then I put myself out there, the vulnerability is out there, and I just suck. So there's about a year to at least 6 months deliberation to start it
Hmm.
start it. And that was before even knowing what it was. Like, before, I was thinking like, well, oh, I'm just gonna try to be like a male influencer and like sell products and do whatever. Well, that was stupid. Absolutely stupid, because it wasn't authentic,
Hmm.
and it really wasn't the why behind what I wanted to do. So, after a month of that, I initially transitioned to uh, my why is to be of service of other men, and particularly, uh, I really, how do I say this? I really wanted to pick up the torch for my oldest brother, James,
Hmm.
and that he was a voice for the voiceless. He championed the underdog, and through his reporting and being out there. And I feel similarly in the fact that I think there are a lot of men that are suffering in silence. So if there's something that I can do to highlight that voice, and not even because I think 75% of my followers are men,
Hmm.
but I would say 75% of the comments and the likes are women. But even if they don't see the message, but they hear it, or there's no, I'm sorry, they will see it, but there's no feedback. As long as they are seeing the message and seeing that you're not special. And I don't want to say like you're not special, because everyone's special in their own way. But sometimes when we go through these hard times, divorce, loss, addiction, um, grief, you
Hmm.
think it's just like, oh, it's just me. Why is it happening to just me? And then when you find out there's a community of guys that are experiencing the same thing, you're like, oh, huh, I'm not special. Wait, John, you know about this? Yeah, man. I went through a divorce, 3 years ago, and this is how how it felt for me, how it worked, and whatever. It's like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. And then you start creating this bond, and you start moving the flywheel one person at a time. You start
Hmm.
building a community of understanding that these aren't just me problems, they're us problems. And if
Hmm.
we attack them together as an us problem, then we start to shift paradigms, stigmas.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, as you're mentioning that, I'm thinking about myself. So even though I'm doing all this work, I still struggle reaching out to my guy friends and just being like, hey, you know what? I'm having a tough day,
Yeah.
uh, and I just need someone to talk to. And I
Yep.
still struggle with that. I mean, I'm getting better, but it's still and again, I think for me it's like the message I tell myself, and I think most guys do, is I need to
Yeah.
have my shit together. I'm a dude. I need to have it together. But it's like, what service am I doing to myself by pretending to have it all together and just suffering alone? And I think it's being able to change that narrative that's helping me. But I just want other guys listening to this podcast to recognize that, like you said, John, we're not alone in our problems. Someone else has also experienced something similar, and we
Mm.
can support each other. And it's just being able to ask for help, because I don't think there's any shame in asking for that help, or it makes us less of a man. In fact, it probably makes us look a bit stronger, being able to admit that we need help.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's just like unreasonable, right? You figure, like, I feel like for some reason there's this responsibility for guys, especially especially at our station in life, to have it all figured out.
Hmm.
No, excuse my French, but that is absolutely bullshit.
Hmm.
That is that no one, absolutely no one has it all figured out, right? I may 100%, I may fail more than you, or I may fail more than others, or maybe some of them think they know what they're doing, but no one has it totally figured out.
Yeah.
And you know, and as a result, there's so much pressure and stress. Whereas, if we can just be present in the moment, and here's the thing, right? The good times don't last forever. So
Yeah.
be blessed, enjoy, be present. And on the converse side, the bad times don't
Hmm.
last forever. And just know this shall pass too. But you still got to be present. You still got to do the work, and you still got to reach out, because no one in this world, humans are not grown, they don't mature, and they don't thrive in isolation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For sure, for sure. And I know you wanted to chat around some of the things that, I know you referred to some of the things I've been talking about on my page, but I guess in terms of just growth and being vulnerable, like what are some of the messages you want other men to hear, whether it's through the work you're doing, or the people you're reaching out to? I know we've talked a little bit about it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to have a voice, but what are some of the other things that you want to get out there?
You know, some of these things are just really simple. Like
Hmm.
you're like, oh yeah, it's like obviously, John. Uh, one of the big things that has helped me is one working out, right? And I'm not asking everyone to like run a 5K then go to the gym and lift weights, but being outside, especially in this COVID environment, and if you're teleworking or whatever, take 5-10 minutes, go out and walk. Like there's a lot that walk could do for your mental resiliency. Now, I try to run 3 times a week, and I know, man, if I miss a run, I feel it. I feel
Hmm.
it like not just in my body, but in my mind because, after those endorphins are released, and I really should know more of the science about it, but after those endorphins are released, I just feel better about myself. And when you feel better about yourself and you feel your self-worth, you make better decisions for your life. I could have a very myopic day. I'm really focused, but then when I work out, you know, I feel like I can widen out that view and relax, and I think that's a big piece. I think the other piece is journaling, right?
Hmm.
Because me, like probably a thousand billion guys out there, overanalyze everything. I'm like, oh, is this the right decision? Blah 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 blah. And I think putting the thoughts down on paper gives you a chance to really analyze what you're thinking and be like, okay, I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling hopeless. Is it really hopeless? Like if I look at my situation, is really hopeless. I have food, I got my health, and I got a roof over my head. So is it really hopeless? And so what it does is it allows you to kind of put things into perspective and not catastrophize things. Because
Hmm.
when things are hopeless, then there's no chance of repair.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
I'm glad you mentioned the journaling part, because I think for me it also helps in reframing situations. So say if
yes,
I'm in a relationship and
yes,
my partner says something or does something, immediately I personalize it, or I think she's uh, doing something to hurt me or whatever. But just
right, yeah.
putting the thoughts on paper, I'm able to, like you said, look at the different perspectives in terms of, okay, well, maybe that's what she meant, or maybe that's what this person meant, and it's not how I'm perceiving the situation.
Uh,
And then it allows me to break the situation down further and even come up with questions that I can ask and bring up this situation in a healthy fashion with the other person, right? In terms of how I frame it and how I address it, rather than getting upset and either stonewalling or just criticizing. It allows you to reframe so many like different perspectives and how to address those situations. So I think journaling is very crucial, and I've had many guests on the podcast who have talked about journaling and some of the movement, walking and working out, as you've mentioned as well.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I'm not as good at right now. I think it's every 2 days is my average, journaling, but I should be better. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think another thing is meditation. It's so easy. There's so much on YouTube. It's free. You can buy an app if you want to, whatever your flavor is.
Hmm.
And you know, what I'm asking for, or what I'm challenging people to do, is not so much like, oh, I need to do this like 2 week retreat and really have these mindful experiences. No, what I'm really asking is like take 5 minutes. There are 5 to 8 minutes meditation,
Hmm.
and if you can pull out of work or before work or after work and just calm your mind and reduce the anxiety, you know, more things are possible.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just more things are possible. I think we get in this mind trap and the stress and the anxiety and the overthinking and blah blah blah. If we just are able to calm the mechanism, then things seem to work out a little
Yeah,
bit better.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and again, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better, but it's true. Like I was reading recently that, the average person is just jumping from one task to the other or one activity to the other. And just,
Mhm.
even like you leave work, you go home, you leave a stressful job and now you're going home to the wife and kids, and you never take that transition time to really reflect and breathe. It's just go, go, go,
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah.
you're adding one stress on top of the other, and you're not even recognizing the impact all of that is having on your mind and your body, because you're not taking that break to just breathe through it. And we often don't realize, and then it comes out, like either it's like through an outburst, or you're just like you crash and burn, and
Yeah.
then you look back and you're like, what happened? It's because you haven't been taking care of yourself. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you mentioned that meditation part. It is as simple as 5 minutes, and people just don't appreciate how simple it can be. Like 5 minutes is nothing in the grand scheme of our days, right? And if we can take 5 minutes for that mental break, it could do wonders. Um, yeah, there's no like, it doesn't need to be fancy.
No, and what happened, and at least what was happening to me, like, and I think we all do it, right? You had the perfect example. Like, you go to work, you work all day, work 8, 10 hours, right? It's stressful. Come home, it could be a stressful environment. Hopefully, for some people out there, it's not a stressful environment, but then that loop just keeps happening, and in that, your body is in a state of survival, right? Stress is up, yeah, adrenaline is up, and like that's just not normal, right? And then your blood pressure rises, and oh shoot, you're having spikes in blood pressure, but yet, and then you're not eating good, you're not sleeping good, and it just keeps going. And so, even health wise, from a physiological health wise, there are benefits to meditating and
Mhm.
calming and reducing the anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your meditation journey been like? I guess for listeners who are like, okay, well, how's John done it? And like, where did you start? And because what I try to tell people is like, you could start small and build your way up, and give yourself that time. And my
Mm.
personal story, not with meditation per se, but with just a gratitude journal. And I've
Mm.
mentioned this story a few times, but I struggled at first because I was
Yeah.
trying to do too much,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
wasn't seeing the results immediately, so I gave up.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then a year later, I made a commitment to stick with
Well,
it, and I got rid of all the excuses,
yep.
and I stuck with it, and I started seeing the benefits. And you can start simple with any of these things, and work your way up. But I think it's the same with meditation. Most people are just not willing to try it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like for me, it came out of necessity, to be perfectly honest.
Hmm.
Um, so it wasn't like I was this mindful person, like, oh, I bet yoga would really help. No, it had nothing to do with that.
Hmm.
It had to do with, to be perfectly blunt, had to do with a breakup of a girlfriend, or a significant relationship that I had in my life, and that you know me wanting her back, and she was like, no, you need to do the self-work. And so from that experience, that's when I started to find meditation and journaling and that type of stuff. And so what helps me is the power of habit, right?
Hmm.
And I'm not perfectly good at this, and still working in. But what I liked, what you said, you were talking about a commitment, and so the commitment is key. I think it's helpful if you write it down, or whatever. It sounds stupid, but John Foley, I commit. So what I'm trying to commit to is a nightly routine, right? I brush my teeth, I get into bed, I journal, and then I meditate, and then I'm out.
Hmm.
And so that repetition of kind of make it like make it just automatic, so you don't even have to think about it. When we have to think about it, like, for me, it lowers the actual percentage of actually doing it to like
Yeah.
50%, or
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
less. But if I can make it automatic, and put it into my environment and my routine. Us humans are creatures of habit, and that's
Hmm.
where I've had a bit more success in working journaling and meditation into my life.
Absolutely. And I think the one of the things I've tried to tell people also is during this time of, the pandemic, as you mentioned, there's certain things we can look at and say, okay, this is the benefit of COVID. But one of the other things I say is, is we have all this extra time now, right? Most people aren't commuting to work, or most people can't go to the gym, or most people can't uh, go out. So you have
Right.
this extra time which you can use wisely, right?
Mhm.
And if you've been wanting to try meditation for a really long time, or journaling for a really long time,
Yeah.
this is your opportunity to even
100%.
set aside 5 minutes and try it
Hmm.
out. And
Yeah.
you know, most things, like you said, we are creatures of habit, but if you try it out for 3 weeks, then it starts becoming normal,
Yeah.
and you start craving it because you're like, oh, I'm missing this in my daily routine. I need to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been trying to tell people, is right now is a perfect opportunity, considering everything else going on, perfect opportunity to try new things that been wanting to try for a really long time, and it's good for you. Just do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's the hardest thing, Uh people, I don't want to say people, me. I have a tendency to always look for the perfect moment.
Hmm.
Well, perfect moment's never going to happen. So you might not do it perfectly. And there are times, just particularly when you're talking about meditation, when I'm just like, I can't listen to what they're saying. But I'm trying so hard.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Hmm.
That is okay. But you know what? You're in it. You're doing it. You're trying it. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, the other thing is, like, I'm no expert in meditation, and I
Mhm.
struggle with it myself.
Yeah.
And people often have this conception that meditation means you're in this state of bliss, and you have nothing else going on. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, your thoughts will wander. Like, you will start thinking about, because you're sitting in silence. It is normal to start thinking about all kinds of stuff you need to do, what someone said to you a week ago, uh, stuff like that's going to come to your mind. And that's part of meditation, that you practice working through those thoughts. You
Yeah.
acknowledge those thoughts and you work through them. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in the
No,
beginning,
no.
it is tough, right?
Yeah. And I think one thing for me in some of the people that I follow, it helps to set an intention for the meditation. Like for this meditation, I'm just really trying to calm my mind, or you know, I'm envisioning a better self. Is kind of cliche as that sounds, but whatever your intention is, just set it.
Hmm.
In that little act for me. Um, Helps me become a little bit more focused.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate this conversation. It's been great. And I guess now, considering all the work you've done and you're continuing to do, what is your goal? Like, especially with the page you have, and some of the messages you're trying to get out there. What's your ultimate goal? Where do you see this going? Yeah, like stuff like that.
So I think I still have to. The month of January largely has been horrible for me in that I really haven't done much with the page, and so I think for me I'm still trying to find my reason. Right, my
Hmm.
overall reason is that I want to examine what is modern masculinity, and then help men to live more empowered lives. Um, but I'm still working. I'm still going through the journey myself,
Hmm.
and so my main focus right now is just trying to hone in what my message is. I think at times I'm all over the map, and maybe that's more of a harder self critique of myself. But I really want to zero in. But at the very foundation of what I'm trying to do is that I want to be of service to other men and people in general, women too, but particularly men. I think men have a hard time socializing, some of these things. We're bred differently than women. As young girls, you're taught to share your feelings and with your girlfriends, and for us, we were not. It's about sports and winning, or at least it was for me.
Yeah.
So not as a bad thing. It's just culturally kind of how it went. But what I'm trying to do is change that, and really by meeting people like you, having these conversations, building the community, and acting. So
Yeah, and I think just one point of clarity. I guess when you say you're wanting to help men living empowered lives, what does that look like? Like, I think I understand, but my
yeah,
perception of it might be different than yours.
no,
So
no,
what is it? Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear that. So for me, right, for the longest time, particularly since my brother's death, I'm gonna put it in plain English. I've just hated myself. There's just been a toxic level of shame and stress and embarrassment and guilt that has happened from that experience. And so that what I find is that as I do some of these things, like this conversation right here is
Hmm.
a two-way transaction. I think you're getting something out of it. I'm getting something out of it. We both walk away feeling better,
Hmm.
and we can live more whole lives. Whereas if you're just like, I hate myself, I think you got a post about having blinders on, like you just curl up versus opening up and seeing what the world has to offer, and living a more wholehearted life. And so that is what I'm trying to do. I recognize these tendencies and these attitudes and really some of the negative self narrative that I have, and that I'm trying to change that self narrative, the negative self narrative. And as I'm doing that, I'm trying to share my story so that way I assume there are other guys out there that are living the same journey and be like, hey, come on, guys, let's do this together and live more holistic or wholehearted lives together.
Yeah, no, that's amazing and that's great. And I agree. Like, having conversations like this is great because it gives you that sense of community. It makes
Yeah.
you feel like you've got someone out there that you can reach out to and chat
Right.
with, and you're not alone, right? And
Right.
I hope more guys start doing that. That's kind of my goal too, is building that community of men where we're comfortable talking about our feelings, we're comfortable asking for help. We don't see any shame in mental health,
Mm.
and being vulnerable enough, like yourself, to be able to say, yeah, I struggle with it. I'm also working through it, and that builds character in itself, right? So
Yeah.
so I definitely appreciate that and agree with you. I guess one of the things, if you're comfortable talking about it, when you say kind of like, after what happened to your brother, you carried a lot of it. And
Yeah.
why was
I
that?
did.
Why did you personalize it so much?
Uh, I don't know. I have no idea. That's actually what I'm working through in therapy,
Hmm.
to be perfectly blunt with you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't have an answer for you. It's just the way it kind of went, way
Hmm.
it has went. And yeah, I don't have an answer for you. But we'll let you know. We'll let you know if I figure it out though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it must be hard, right? So again, I commend you for working through it and getting that help. Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. And John, again, I want to appreciate everything you're doing. It's really noble, and being able to just speak your own story and share some of the things you've been through, it takes a lot of courage. So I want to commend you for that. Again, I'm grateful for you being here and sharing that story with me, and some of the listeners. So thank you again. I guess for people that want to get a hold of you or be a part of the work you're doing, what's the best way to reach out and get a hold of you?
Yeah, simple. At Men's Methodology on Instagram, DM me. I'll respond.
Yeah.
It's too easy. Um, yeah, and I'm looking to hear from people, and I think for me that's where I get the energy to do more. So,
Yeah.
looking forward to it. So, Thank you for having me. This has been fun. You're an easy guy to talk to.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. And yeah, and for those that want to reach out to John, for sure, like, that's how John and I connected, was on
100%.
Instagram. Lots of messages back and forth, and we thought about doing this and having this conversation. So I can attest to how quick John responds. uh, but yeah, no, this has been great, and I hope we can keep doing this and having these
Please,
conversations.
please.
For
Mhm.
sure, right? I think it is. We need to have these conversations, and
Yes,
we
we
need to
do.
be supporting each other. Any last words of advice or wisdom for people who are stuck, right? Like, who feel alone, who don't know how to navigate through some of the. And I think this pandemic has added another layer to some of the mental health struggles, right? You feel like, even myself, I see it, like, you feel like you're, a lot of people, like myself included, we're making huge strides, and then all of a sudden you've just got this another wave of this pandemic come and hit you, and now you're trying to navigate through that while working through everything else. Like, I don't know if you experienced that, but what kind of
Oh, 100%.
advice? Yeah.
So I hope my answer to your question doesn't sound too silly, but at the end of the day, the only one responsible for your behavior is you. And so I challenge you and anyone who's listening to be the hero of your own story or movie. And what do I mean by that? It sounds super cliche, but we've all seen the movies. I grew up loving superheroes.
Yeah.
So every superhero, okay, what's the problem? We, usually they look for a guide, they see what they have to do, chart a path forward. And I'm not saying chart the whole path forward, but what is the first step? What is the first step? And so you take that first step and like, oh, okay, this wasn't that hard. And I'm generalizing it because I don't know what everyone's situation is, but
Hmm.
there are people out there that have been through this or done this. Reach out. Hey, this is what we're trying to do. Try new things and act now, right? Because again, as we said previously, there's no perfect time, so you need to act now, reach out, and start stepping out.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Take care. All right.